A while back, I had this weird thing happen with this older guy at my job that still kind of messes with my head. It all went down at this office where I'd been grinding away for a couple of years. It was a small office deal, with just a handful of folks, me included. One day, my boss brings in this new dude, an older fella, to work on the other side of the office. Yeah, this place had two sections, one for dealing with client accounts and the other for managing paperwork. My boss brought him in because they were church buddies, and the paperwork side had some religious vibes. So this older dude hangs with us for about a month before he walks up one day and says, "Hey, I'm Bob," or whatever. Seemed cool, even handed me a Hershey kiss at some point. Fast forward a couple of months, my boss asks if I can pick up Bob, probably because his car was busted. I'm cool with it, and my boss asks if it's cool to give Bob my number for coordination. I'm like, sure, why not? So I pick him up, no drama. After that, though, I start getting these late-night texts from him out of the blue. At first, he's talking about hanging out, saying sorry for being way older. Then, things get kind of creepy. I'm talking paragraphs of misspelled pervy stuff. Tried ignoring it, but it just made him text more. In the middle of this mess, my roommates need a ride to a casino. I toss them a few bucks and they say they'll sort a ride back. They show up a couple of hours later. Guess who's their ride? Creepy Bob. Now, I'm not just freaked that this perv knows where I live, but I'm wondering how the heck he ended up giving my roommates a lift. Coincidence or what? A few days later, I'm at my friend's apartment, and as I hit the sidewalk, there's Bob, grinning like a creep in front of a shop, wearing a black top hat. Couple weeks later, same thing, leaving my friend's place. There's Bob on the sidewalk with that same creepy grin. I text my friend real quick, let him know the creep's back, and split. Later, find out Bob vanished by the time my friend got downstairs. By this point, those texts are coming even faster. Dude's now threatening to show up at my house if I don't respond. Long, dirty texts spelling out what he'd like to go down between us. But when I see him at work during the day, he's all acting like everything's normal. No hint of his nighttime antics. After spotting him yet again leaving my friend's place, I overhear some coworkers talking about how weird Bob is. I jump into the convo, show one of them the texts, spill the beans. We agree to keep it on the down low. Next day, my boss pulls me into his office. He'd heard about the texts, wants to see my phone. I'm kind of hesitant, but my boss says it's necessary. Turns out he had a serious talk with Bob, and the crap stops. Grumpy coworker apologizes for telling the boss, but I get it. We start talking more. And guess what? We end up dating, then getting hitched. Thinking about that weird time with the older guy at work gives me the creeps. Those late-night texts and strange encounters outside of work were seriously unnerving. It's crazy how someone can act normal during the day, but turn into a whole different, unsettling person after hours. I'm grateful for my coworker who spoke up and told the boss about it. All right, let me take you back to when I worked at this small diner. It was your usual spot where the coffee never seemed to run out and the regulars were practically like family. Most days followed the same routine, but there was this one guy, let's call him Dave, who added a whole new layer to the mix. Dave wasn't your typical customer. He had this thing for sitting in the corner, quietly sipping his coffee, but his eyes, they were always on me. At first I thought maybe he was just a lonely guy looking for some company. Seemed harmless, you know? But then came the notes. It all started innocently, or at least that's what I thought. Dave would leave tips with little messages written on napkins, stuff like, "Your smile brightens my day." Initially I didn't think much of it. I figured he was just a quirky guy trying to be nice. After all, tips are tips, right? As time went on, Dave's notes got more personal. A bit too personal for comfort. "I want you, and here is my number," were among the messages. It made me uneasy. And those stares from his corner, they went from flattering to downright unsettling. Like he was trying to etch every detail of me into his memory. I couldn't shake the feeling that Dave wasn't just a harmless admirer. His lingering gaze turned from flattering to creepy, and the other customers began to notice. I'd get sympathetic looks from them like they knew something I didn't. Despite the weird turn of events, I kept serving meals and putting on polite smiles. What else could I do? Complaining about poetic notes to the manager felt a bit too trivial. So I kept my discomfort to myself, hoping Dave would get bored with his little game. But he didn't. The notes took a darker turn, crossing the line between admiration and something far more sinister. I won't repeat the explicit content, but it left me feeling violated, like my personal space was no longer mine. The once friendly diner started feeling like a cage, and Dave's corner became this looming shadow. One day, as I cleared his table, he handed me a tip with a note that left no room for misinterpretation. It was invasive, crude, and just plain disrespectful. That was my breaking point. I couldn't continue pretending this was normal or harmless. Summoning every ounce of courage, I approached Dave. The diner buzzed with its usual activity, but my heartbeat drowned out the background noise. I told him, as calmly as I could manage, that his behavior was unacceptable. I expected a hint of remorse or embarrassment, but instead he smirked. "I'm just expressing admiration for true beauty," he said, his words giving me the creeps. Enough was enough. I reported the situation to my manager, who, to my relief, took immediate action. Dave was banned from the diner and a weight lifted off my shoulders. Looking back on the whole Dave saga, it's hard to pinpoint his true intentions. Maybe he was just a lonely guy trying to connect in a weird way. Or perhaps he found some thrill in making others uncomfortable. His notes started harmless enough, like he was trying to be poetic, but they morphed into something way darker. Whatever was going on in his mind, I'm just glad I stood up and got him banned. It makes me wonder, though, how many people out there deal with unsettling situations like that and never speak up. It's a weird world. Hi, Reddit. So I recently got this gig as a fire watch up in the remote woods. Seems like a chill job, right? Just me, the trees, and the occasional wildlife. But let me tell you, things are starting to get a bit weird. The first couple of nights were pretty standard. I checked for any signs of fire, make sure everything was in order, basic fire watch stuff. But last night, around 2 a.m., I heard something strange, like really strange. I was sitting in my little cabin, just scanning the area with my flashlight, when I heard this distant scream. It wasn't an animal or anything. It sounded like a human scream. I grabbed my binoculars, trying to spot anything, but the woods were pitch black. All I could do was listen. Then came these muffled voices, like people arguing, and suddenly the sound of something heavy hitting the ground. I can't be sure, but it almost sounded like a body dropping. I hesitated to call the cops. What if I just heard some campers having a heated argument? But deep down it felt off, like something was seriously wrong out there. So after that creepy night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I tried to brush it aside, telling myself it was probably just people having a loud argument or something. But as the days passed, the unease stuck with me. During my routine checks, I kept my ears open, hoping not to hear anything strange again. But last night it happened again. Around the same time, that chilling scream echoed through the trees. This time, though, there was no mistaking it. It wasn't some heated argument. It was pure fear. I grabbed my binoculars, scanning the darkness, desperately trying to see something, anything. The voices followed, those muffled arguments that seemed to escalate. And then, that sickening thud, like something hitting the ground hard. It chilled me to the bone. I debated calling the authorities again, but doubts crept in. What if I was just overthinking it? What if it was some twisted wildlife sound? But deep down, I knew. There's a difference between a deer rustling in the bushes and a human scream echoing through the night. Now, I'm stuck in this cabin, questioning my choices. Do I risk being the overreacting newbie, or do I ignore my gut feeling? This job was supposed to be peaceful, but it's turning into a nightmare. Okay, so things just got weirder. Last night, the same unsettling symphony played out again. That damn scream, those hushed arguments, and that sickening thud. I couldn't ignore it anymore. Something was seriously wrong out there. I grabbed my flashlight, scanning the woods, hoping to catch a glimpse of what was happening. But it was all shadows and trees. The voices continued, like ghosts whispering secrets I couldn't understand. Fear gnawed at me. This time I called the cops. I had to. Told them about the screams, the arguments, the thuds. They assured me they'd check it out, but the uncertainty lingers. Did I do the right thing or did I just overreact? The cops checked the area, found nothing. It leaves me feeling like maybe I overreacted, you know? Maybe it was just some weird forest noise and I called the authorities for nothing. The job was supposed to be about trees and tranquility, not weird screams and creepy arguments. I'm back to the routine, doing my fire watch duties. But the unease still lingers. It's like a dark cloud hanging over these woods. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks on me, or maybe there's something more sinister out there. Either way, it's a story for the books, and I'll be keeping my ears open, hoping those unsettling sounds were just a one-time thing. Stay safe out there.